We've all felt it, that heavy, hollow ache in your chest when someone is gone.
Grief is a universal human experience.
But did a hunter-gatherer 50,000 years ago feel the same way?
Turns out the answer is etched into the very bones they left behind.
Today, we're diving deep into the history of heartbreak.
Let's start with our cousins, the Neanderthals.
For a long time, we thought they were just brutes.
But then came the discovery at Shanidar Cave in Iraq.
Archaeologists found something stunning: flower burials.
Pollen from yarrow, cornflower, and hollyhock surrounded the bodies.
It wasn't just a disposal. It was a ceremony.
They were saying goodbye with beauty.
And it wasn't just about the dead.
It was about how they cared for the living.
Shanidar I, an old male, had a crushed skull and a withered arm.
He couldn't hunt, yet he lived for decades. His tribe kept him alive because they loved him.
When he finally died, their grief must have been immense.
Now, let's jump forward to the Upper Paleolithic.
Around 30,000 years ago, burials got fancy.
Look at the Sungir site in Russia. They found a man buried in a suit decorated with 3,000 ivory beads.
Think about the time that took.
Thousands of hours of labor just for a funeral.
This shows that grief was social. It was a community affirming the value of the person lost.
But nothing hits harder than the loss of a child.
At Sungir, 2 children were buried head to head. They were covered in spears and ivory jewelry.
The level of care is heartbreaking.
They wanted their children to be protected in the afterlife.
Wait, did they even believe in an afterlife?
The grave goods suggest they get
Food, weapons, and tools for the journey ahead.
Grief wasn't just goodbye, it was see you later.
As humans settled down, rituals became even more complex.
Enter the Natufians about 12,000 years ago.
They were the first to do something very modern. They buried their pets with them.
This 12,000-year-old burial in Israel shows a woman with a puppy.
Her hand is resting gently on the dog. Even then, the bond between humans and dogs was unbreakable.
Loss of a companion is loss, no matter the species.
But what about the physical pain of grief?
Ancient people didn't have therapists, but they had rituals.
Ritual is like a pressure valve for the soul.
In many cultures, mourning was loud and public. It wasn't something you hid away.
By expressing it outwardly, they processed it inwardly.
Now let's look at ancient Egypt. These guys took grief to a whole new level.
For them, death was just a grand relocation.
But the transition was terrifying.
They had professional mourners, women paid to cry.
The louder the crying, the more the deceased was honored.
It's weird to us, but it provided a structure for the pain.
They also wrote letters to the dead. One man wrote to his late wife, asking her to stop haunting him.
Grief wasn't always just sadness. Sometimes it was fear.
Moving to Mesopotamia, we find the first great story of grief.
The Epic of Gilgamesh.
When his best friend Enkidu dies, Gilgamesh loses it.
He roams the wild, refusing to bury his friend for 7 days. He was in total denial.
This story is over 4,000 years old.
And yet, the stages of grief are all there.
Denial, anger, depression. It's all in the text.
Human nature hasn't changed at all.
In ancient Greece, grief was poetic, but strictly regulated.
In
No
Athens,
more
so
slashing
how
the
did they
sheets
find
or loud
excessive
wailing.
displays?
Commemoration.
They built stelae, grave markers that told the person's story.
Keeping the memory alive was the ultimate cure.
Even the Vikings had a unique way of processing loss.
It wasn't just about ships on fire.
It was about status and the journey to Valhalla.
The funeral was a feast for the living as much as the dead.
They celebrated the life that was lived.
And that's a key lesson from history.
Grief is about the past, but ritual is about the future.
It helps the survivors find a way to keep going.
Think about the common threads here.
From flowers in a cave to beads on a suit.
From puppies in graves to letters to ghosts.
It's all about connection.
We are a species that refuses to let go.
And that's actually a beautiful thing. Science now tells us that grief actually changes our brains.
It's a form of learning. Your brain is learning to live in a world where that person is missing.
Ancient rituals helped speed up that learning process.
They gave the brain a roadmap for the pain.
Without ritual, grief can become complicated.
That's why even today, we still have funerals.
We're doing exactly what the Neanderthals done.
We're just using different tools.
Let's talk about the oldest mourner ever found.
In South Africa, researchers found evidence of Homo naledi burials.
Long before us, humans were already mourning.
They were dragging bodies into the deepest, darkest parts of caves.
Why go to all that trouble?
To keep them safe? To honor them?
We might never know for sure.
But it suggests that grief is older than language.
It's older than civilization.
It's a fundamental part of being a social animal.
Speaking of animals, they grieve too.
Elephants have been seen visiting the remains of their dead for years.
They touch the bones with their trunks. If they feel it, then our ancestors definitely did.
Grief is the price we pay for love.
That's a quote from Queen Elizabeth, but it applies to the Stone Age too.
If you didn't love, you wouldn't grieve.
So every ancient burial is a testament to ancient love. Let's talk about the Red Lady of Paviland.
Found in Wales, it's actually a young man from 33,000 years ago.
He was covered in red ochre. Red is the color of blood and life. By painting him red, they were trying to give him life back.
It's a symbolic act of defiance against death.
Every ritual we've seen is a way to say, you still matter.
Even when the body is gone, the person remains.
In the Andes, some cultures kept their dead with them.
They would mummify their ancestors and bring them to feasts.
To us, it's macabre. To them, it was comfort.
Why let death end the relationship?
It's all about maintaining the bond.
Let's talk about secondary burials.
This is when the body is buried, then dug up later.
The bones are cleaned and moved to a final resting place.
It's a long-term way of processing grief.
It gives the family a second chance to say goodbye.
It shows that grief doesn't have an expiration date.
Ancient humans knew this instinctively.
They didn't expect to get over it in a week.
They lived with their ghosts.
And they were okay with that.
So, what can we learn from them?
Don't grieve alone. Every ancient culture used community to carry the weight.
Second, use your hands.
Carve the bead, paint the stone, plant the flower.
Action helps the mind process the abstract pain. It's okay to be loud.
Wail, cry, scream at the gods if you have to.
Suppressing it only makes the shadow longer. Ancient humans were deeply connected to the cycle of life.
They saw death every day.
But it didn't make it any easier.
It just made them more prepared to handle it together.
Think about the first person who ever buried a flower. They didn't have to do that.
It didn't help them survive.
It didn't give them more food.
But they did it anyway.
They did it for the love of the person they lost.
And that is where humanity begins. Not with tools, not with fire, but with a funeral.
Archaeologist Margaret Mead famously said,
The first sign of civilization was a healed femur.
Because it meant someone cared for you when you were down.
Grief is the continuation of that care.
It's caring for someone who can no longer care for themselves.
So the next time you feel that ache,
Remember, you're standing in a 250,000-year-old tradition.
You are not alone in your sadness.
You are part of a very old, very loving family.
The human family. And we've been helping each other through this since the beginning.
Thanks for exploring the history of the heart with us.
If you found this interesting, hit that subscribe button.
And let us know in the comments, what's a ritual that helps you deal with loss?
We'd love to hear your stories.
Stay curious and keep caring for one another. See you next time.